if you want to go into export, don't go into it as if you have to become the expert in exporting. That takes a whole lot of time and might drain your energy to actually continue selling in your local market, which is your bread and butter.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode here on the Business Breakthrough New York podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Pierre Lespinasse, one of my best and favorite former colleagues here. He is still working here at the Farmingdale Small Business Development Center. We brought him on specifically to talk about importing and export. We've done a lot of conversations on this show kind of about your local small business, how to start it, how to get funding, and all of these things. But one area that we haven't really covered yet is this importing and exporting. So let's just make sure that everyone is operating from the same baseline understanding. Just could you give us a brief background of what is importing for a business? What's considered importing and what's considered exporting?
Sure. Okay. So importing is done usually by necessity, okay? Especially if you're a manufacturer, if you're a retailer, if you're a wholesaler. There's a whole lot of importing that goes on in America from China, from India, and it's usually based on the price of labor because you get cheaper products from overseas in order to remain competitive because your competition is doing the same thing. People go out and they buy stuff from China.
And I think a great example is like the iPhone, right?
Absolutely.
And so I've recently heard that they actually did a calculation of how much the iPhone would cost if it was wholly produced in the United States. And so an iPhone produced in China, the way that it is right now, I think is around like $1,100, $1,200. And it's twice as expensive. It's like $2,400. That would be like price to consumer if it was produced in America.
That's the driver. Cost is the driver for import. Export is a little bit more difficult, although export is more supported by government than import. There's very little support for imports, to tell you the truth.
Because the United States government would prefer that you're producing things in the United States.
There are balance of payment issues with imports, which has all kinds of impacts on the economy, on the value of the dollar, and all this other stuff. So think of it as it's a game, it's the economic game that we play, right? We score when we export, okay? Because we have more stuff going out, we hire more people here. What I would say about imports though on Long Island, there's a certain twist that a lot of people miss, right? There is a free zone in Long Island. It's right by MacArthur Airport. There's a space there, right? What happens there is you can actually import stuff from overseas. If it goes into the free zone, you're not paying taxes, of course, because it hasn't gone out yet. If you were to, say, import parts to make a table from China, the parts come in, and you actually put the parts together within the free zone, okay? You can then go out and export it to whoever wants to buy it from you, and it's considered a product that is here. So you can buy the parts and you can assemble them. And that's so you're mixing these definitions. You're mixing both imports, you're importing parts, but you're putting it together here and you get a final product, and that's considered export because you're then going to sell it to whoever wants to buy it around the world.
Yeah. Wow.
So export is supported.
And so how do you mean? Like, how is it supported?
It is supported. I'll tell you. In New York State, right? New York State has a global New York department. And their whole purpose is to encourage export. They encourage it by the small grants, not a lot of money, but there are grants for participating in fairs overseas. There are grants for translating stuff. There are grants for upgrading your websites so that, if you're selling to foreigners, they can actually understand what you're selling. Yeah,
it's important.
That kind of stuff, right?
Okay,
but it's an encouragement. But the biggest encouragement comes from the type of support that you get. Right? If you want to sell your stuff, say, to Canada, you live here. You don't have the kind of resources to be traveling all back and forth Canada and do all the research. You are supported by both New York, Global New York, which will help you, but you're also supported by the U.S. Commerce Department, which is tremendous. It's a tremendous service. let's say you research your product and you find that this is a product that's in demand in, say, Colombia. You've never been there, you don't know anybody there, but somehow you've come to understand that there might be a demand for your product there. Well, U.S. embassies are staffed, okay, with commercial officers from the Commerce Department.
Things that I don't think many people know.
No, they live there.
I've been to embassies and I didn't even know.
No, every embassy has someone who is a commercial attaché.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the commercial attaché facilitates business from the U.S. to that country.
So we have somebody that's from our nation, that's boots on the ground, so to speak, in other countries that then understand.
They know the players.
The business. Yeah, they know the players.
They know how to do the research on the ground. And they will even, let's say you want to go to Colombia then, right? If you enlist for the services of the U.S. Commerce Department for a small fee, and the fee is not even about profiting, it's about Congress saying that somebody has to pay something. Okay, so you pay a small fee. Your meetings can be arranged beforehand. You know who you're going to talk to. You know why, because you have to make connections on the ground. That's why a lot of people can't really do it, because you do need to make connections on the ground.
Right. There has to be some sort of infrastructure for you to get your product there, and or at least, like, it's not like you have to build the infrastructure, but you have to know how it works, and like you said, who are the players. And
I think in terms of my experience with encouraging people to get into export, my point is the small business person simply does not have the resources to engage in full-blown exporter.
Right.
You just don't have it. Both resources, human resources, financial resources. You have to travel. You have to do this. You have to enlist a lawyer to make sure that your intellectual properties are protected. You have to put together. So my point is this, right? If you want to go into export, don't go into it as if you have to become the expert in exporting. That takes a whole lot of time and might drain your energy to actually continue selling in your local market, which is your bread and butter. Okay, that may have a negative impact on it. So the key to it is to put together a team. You need a team. You need logistics. And there are people who actually do that. For your product to leave here, to get there and be delivered, it's not you. It can't be you.
And that is something that a lot of people that are first starting their business, they're kind of going into it with a solopreneur mentality.
Exactly.
Like, oh, I've got to do everything, and I've got to be making this money before I can get a team. And then you have these systems built, and you have this problem delegating that responsibility.
This is why the concept of export readiness is fundamental, right? In terms of export readiness, the common understanding is that you should be doing pretty well in your local market first. If you're not selling here, it's not a good idea to say, I'm just going to jump and export, because it does require time. It requires human resources. It requires capital to be invested in that endeavor.
So I'm curious, in this day and age, like, I remember when I was consulting up here with everyone else, and I would have somebody come in that has some pretty neat, some really slick, like, artistic designs that they're getting on t-shirts, and then they're having those produced, but they're doing a lot of this through systems that already exist, like Amazon. And so they go on Amazon. And so how does Amazon and other businesses like that exist where you can sell online to people in other countries, wherever in the world, like, how does that come into play?
Well, if it's the type of product that if you want to go through Amazon with the shrinkage or margin that's involved, right?
Right. Because it's all costs and fees. Yeah.
It's very costly to go through these platforms, but these platforms would solve a lot of your problems, right? A lot of the issues with export. If Amazon agrees to warehouse your product, right?
Yeah.
For your product,
right?
Okay, so it solves your logistics problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you give them 100 of those, and you put it on their platform. They already have it. They'll charge you, but the logistics is solved because you have one place where you're shipping this thing, and people are going on Amazon, ordering it, and Amazon is delivering to them.
Right.
That solves that problem.
for somebody who's wanting to make that transition into exporting, say that they have their kind of local market, they're starting to make their sales,
Right.
and they want to start exploring the demand in other countries, then maybe that's a good stepping stone.
It's a good stepping stone
Right.
to test the market.
But then you're wholly reliant on somebody else for your business, especially if that market really starts to pick up.
Exactly.
And then you're like, okay, well, I hope Amazon doesn't not like me at some point for some reason.
Right.
You know?
And you hope that your margin of profit shrinks tremendously.
Right.
You better have a very healthy margin in order to go on Amazon for them to do all of that for you.
Yeah.
The other problem, which is major in exporting, is how do you get paid?
Right.
Getting paid is a big thing, right? Yes,
It's the whole game. That's the whole thing. It's not even big. It's like, it is.
It does. So you know how to get it there.
Yeah.
You can hire a logistic company to pick it up, and you have an address where to get it, right? The next thing is, how will you get paid? Logically, the best way to get paid is for somebody to pay you first, and then you ship it. But that works for you, but that doesn't work for them, because they're now worried about, will you get the money and not ship the goods?
And then if it ships, then is it meet the quality? Yeah,
exactly. So the way that the financial world solves this, okay, not necessarily for small items, not necessarily for T-shirts,
right?
Okay, but for for more sizable items, and with more sizable dollars involved, letters of credit is the standard way of paying for stuff.
Interesting. So what is a letter?
A letter of credit is if someone wants to buy something from you, right? You say, fine, it's going to be $5,000, okay? And I only accept letters of credit. Fine. What do? They go to their bank in Colombia, wherever that is, right? They go to their bank and they say, I'm gonna make a transaction for $5,000. I need you to issue me a letter of credit, and the bank will charge them. The bank has their requirements. What it actually does is, now you have a piece of paper from a bank that says, if the goods meets the requirements of the contractual requirements, it's gotten there on time at the right station, and it all looks good, right? You are guaranteed to be paid not by him, but by me. The bank guarantees that. That's their paper. So you take that paper, you, the exporter in the U.S., you take that paper to your bank, and you tell the bank, I've got this piece of paper from this bank in Colombia, okay? I need you to be an intermediary to collect it, right? They'll charge you. So they take your paper. Now it's a bank-to-bank thing, right? It's a bank. Your bank is going to say to the other bank, listen, we've met all the requirements. We shipped it on time. It got there on time. We ticked off all the dots, okay? So like, now send the payment.
Yeah, so both entities, the exporter and the importer, or like the business buyer and seller,
of course,
they're both displacing risk.
Absolutely.
And help having the banks kind of assume some of that risk. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Now, LCs are expensive, okay? But if you get an LC by involving the bank from the get-go, right? But there is something else called, it's a documentary transaction, okay? You need to assemble all the papers, okay, and ship the papers to the person, and they go to their bank, and this is more risky. This is riskier, because a lot can go wrong in documentary transaction. So the surest way of getting paid is to do it through LCs. Now, for people who don't meet the financial requirements to do LCs, because it costs a lot of money.
Right.
Lately, let's say for small things, somebody wants to order 10 or 5 T-shirts from you, and the credit card is a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the credit card, if you send me something that doesn't meet the requirements, or I don't like it, I can charge it back.
Right.
Okay. The charge back function of credit cards is something of a guarantee that, you're going to get it, you're going to look at it, and you don't like it, you say, I want a refund. And the person says, I'm not going to give you a refund. You say, okay, not a problem. You go back to your provider, your credit card provider, and you say, I want to charge it back. And then they initiate some kind of investigation. Right. Did you get it? So at least you have a third person in between.
Exactly.
To mediate,
yes,
exactly. Conflicts and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense because it seems super risky. I know that that's some problems that I've seen people run into. I guess this is kind of more on the importing side, actually. Whereas like a business is trying to have their t-shirts manufactured. It's cheaper, obviously, to have them manufactured in another country.
Sure.
But then they get it. So you can see this working on both sides. Let's just flip it. We're selling t-shirts. This company here is selling t-shirts or whatever, shoes. It doesn't matter. They're selling something and they're sending it overseas. And then it gets there and it's like, that's not like the color's wrong. Like the color was supposed to be this color code red. And then the business as like, well, that's what we sent to our manufacturer. And so then the manufacturer is involved and it didn't get produced right.
It gets complicated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
So there's a lot. Those are the risks there's a risk of exporting. Payment is a fundamental one.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, and again, the whole point of you expanding your business to the point when you want to export outside of the country is to bring in more revenue,
Absolutely.
to help expand the business. And
but to even get to that, right? If you even get to that, you do need a lawyer. You do need a legal advice, not only to protect your intellectual property, but to understand this country may not be playing by the same rules as the U.S. So you need to understand, right? You do need marketing help, and it's not just a translation.
You were telling me about an example of this a while ago.
Of course, you could translate it literally correctly. Yeah. But you could be offending so many people, right? And you thought you did a good job, and then all of a sudden you don't know what's wrong with your mind.
Yeah, there's like a cultural context that you
The cultural context is a lot, even in terms of how you approach exporting. I once did a seminar on exporting, and we spent like a whole entire day on it. We had lawyers, we had logistics people, we had marketers, and everything else, right? But we ended the workshop on culture. You've done all of this. You spent money. You spend time, and you land in this country to meet your partner who is going to be your distributor and this and that and blah, 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 right? And of course, you're an American. An American do business differently than a lot of people around the world. You landed, you look at your watch, you're meeting the guy, and you sit down and you say, okay, let's roll, right? What are we doing? This and that, that. Not knowing that this guy finds you offensive. He finds that, what kind of person is that?
Yeah. You want to go straight into business? We just met.
I just met you. Yeah. Right? We didn't have coffee. You didn't ask me about my family. And we didn't have small talk.
Yeah. It's so important.
If the Americans say, I got to catch a plane back.
I don't have time for that.
I don't have time for this.
I booked 30 minutes for this meeting. No, it's so true.
Culture is, you've done everything you were supposed to do, but you're going to blow the cell you didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't do the right cultural thing.
Right. You were unaware. You were naive to the way that they do business.
You can't minimize that.
No.
You can't.
So all business is interactions between humans.
Between people.
Yep.
Yeah. They like you, they'll buy. If they don't, that might be a problem.
You can still have a great product. Like, it's going to have to be really, really, really great.
And they really, really need it, right?
Really need it.
It's not that I have this product and I'm trying to penetrate the market in your country. Can you help me, please, right?
I've been waiting for you this whole time. Thank you for coming to me with this product.
That can definitely be a problem.
So, okay, just a quick, because I want to go into importing next. The other one.
Yes.
So, for exporting, what are some of the key points, just to rehash kind of what we've just been talking about, just to give a brief summary. So what are the kind of things that businesses need to consider, like if they're like, I think I'm ready to go and start exporting?
Yes, you need to put a team together. You need to talk to a banker, and the banker will always ask for a plan. What are you doing? So it's not so much the fact that you are going to sell overseas. Your best narrative is that you are expanding the business. Where you're selling it is just another market as far as you're expanding. So you do need a business plan that sort of explains your strategy. The same thing that you would do to start a business, because it's new territory. So you need that in order to have this relationship with your banker, because you're going to need money. You're going to need money for production, right? You're going to need to produce more in order to sell more. So you need a banker to give you either a line of credit or some type of cash flow facility to make this happen. Okay. You need legal advice. You can't just drop there and start selling, right? You may need probably need to, in most countries, you need to form a corporation there. You need to be a business in that country, right? Depending on what you're selling, if it's food, they have their FDA too, they have people who want you to label the thing they want, how they want you to. So you have a lot of protocols to follow, and you need somebody to guide you through that. Okay. Then you need to consider, okay, I can go there. You may have to repackage your goods. There's some repackaging involving primarily translation so that people can look at what you're selling.
And the marketers might not just the marketing firm that's down the street or somebody that you know.
Exactly.
It's kind of the thing. I think part of the thought process here goes back to a heuristic of what got you here won't get you there.
Exactly.
Right. So you got to a point where you're successful here locally within the U.S.
Exactly.
But you can't just go back to that same marketer who helped you crush it in the U.S. You got to
may not have the skill set or the sensitivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, there's cultural sensitivities to help you market where you're going. Okay, all right. So you have all that. Now your factory is ranking or whatever services or whatever goods that you're providing. You got to get it there. Getting stuff from one place to another requires a lot of paper filing to get it on the boat, to get it off the boat. There's lots of registration, and depending on what you're selling, there may be restrictions of whether or not you can even sell this stuff outside of the country. Those change like all the time.
Of course they do.
Okay, they change all the. So the folks that do logistics, that's their profession. That's all they do. It's not a onesie twosie. You fill a couple of forms and you get it there. So they have connections with freighters. They have connections with, okay, now that you've gotten it there, but your guy is 3 hours away from where the port is. How do you then get it there? Logistics is big.
Yeah.
You need to have it on your team, someone you can call and say, hey, listen, I've signed up with you. I have shipment going here, there. Can you take care of it?
Yeah. So you need a logistician or logisticians.
Yes.
You need legal representation.
Yes.
You need to get the bank involved.
Exactly.
Yeah. And reach out to the embassy in the areas that you're going to.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So in your search for the marketing, when you need to prove to yourself, okay, I'm going to go there. Okay. But you don't know anybody. All right. So this is when you go with the commerce department. Last week, I had my client who makes tomato sauce, spaghetti. She wants to sell to Canada. All right. So I have her consult with an expert. This guy's an expert at that stuff. Okay. What do you need to get this edible thing into Canada? This is something somebody's going to eat. Right. What are the steps? You can't.
And it's different.
No, it's different.
In Canada, their version of the FDA is their regulations are different. Exactly. Sometimes in a more healthy way. Like I actually just learned that they have Fruit Loops there. So ironic. But the Fruit Loops they have there don't even look like our Fruit Loops because it's illegal to put like red food dye into food in Canada.
Of course.
And so if they like was it Kellogg's makes Fruit Loops or whoever it is, they have to make a whole different type of Fruit Loop to sell in Canada.
Of course. And if you're going to sell in the province of Quebec, they have this bilingual law that whatever you're advertising has to be if of course you're coming in from the U.S. with your English, but you have to do the same thing in French.
Wow.
That's the law.
Oh, yeah. In Quebec specific.
Quebec specific. Okay. If you're in Toronto, you're good.
Gotcha.
Okay. So these are all the intricacies. It's difficult for a small business to just say, I'm just going to do this thing myself and you're going to plug in. So if you can assemble a team, right, they don't have to work for you because you don't have the money to pay them to work for you, right? But if you assemble a team and you sort of know at what point you contact them, what are you putting the pieces together, it can be done. It can be done. And there's a lot of reason why people export. People export because sometimes your product may have ups and downs in your local market. Okay. And usually the ups and downs are not replicated at the same time in the foreign markets where you're selling it. So it gives you some measure of stability, okay, where it's not the same market. You've diversified your market. It's a good thing. It's definitely a good thing.
Right.
And people love American products because the notion of quality and superiority or whatever. Yeah, people are always looking for for American goods.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's definitely something that I think you put it really well when you said basically you need to not like rewrite your business plan, but you have to have like your business plan 2.0.
Yeah.
And if you follow the same kind of guidelines, but you just gear it towards everything that you're going to do exporting, then you're going to hit all of the pertinent areas that you consider.
It's just another business plan for a different place with different dynamics in the business, right?
Yep. Because a big part of your business plan is figuring out who your target market is.
Exactly.
And so you figure that out, and that's great. I want to shift now into import. Mm-hmm. So this is the area that's a little bit more difficult. It's not as supported, like you said, by the government.
It's not as supported by the government. The support comes from regulations, of course, right? It comes from regulations. Sometimes it comes with tariffs.
Exactly. That was definitely something I wanted to touch on.
Right. Yeah. With tariffs. That can easily destroy your business.
Yeah, especially when they're not there when you start, or they're at a certain level and then they increase.
Exactly.
Or then
you used to sell it for $5 and then there is tariff and now it's $6.50.
And that's a big thing that's going on. And we're not going to go political, but it's a big, like, as a business owner in this world when importing, exporting, you kind of do have to be paying attention to the federal level politics to understand how that's going to impact your business.
Absolutely. I mean, we buy more stuff. I think we probably China's number one place to sell stuff, right? They just sell a lot of stuff to us, right?
Yes, because like you said earlier, because they can do it for a lot cheaper. Because their labor laws are not great.
If you have a tariff on Chinese goods, then everybody's price is going to have to go up, and that could be a problem.
It's gonna, because
the customers were buying this stuff because it was cheap. Right? Not because it was of great quality or nothing. If you know it goes to the 99-cent store because they're going to get great quality.
You know you're going. You know what's going on.
You buy Chinese stuff, right? Chinese products. And the key draw is that it's going to be cheap. So now if it's no longer cheap, then people might resist it.
Yeah. And you have to be aware of your margins. So what are your margins like?
When you tolerate?
What does the market look like? What are your competitors selling at? Are your competitors also importing from China?
Right.
Or are they importing from somewhere else? Maybe there's an opportunity to go somewhere else.
Yes.
I know that they were tinkering around with that. Again, referencing back to the iPhone, they were looking at India to go there, but then I think there was a problem with like the infrastructure and actually being able to get the production done. And so I think then they were looking at Mexico to have a place where they'll do that. And I know that China right now they're looking at Mexico for car production, and to start producing Chinese cars in Mexico that would be sold for like
but it is
$10,000, $15,000, $20,000.
Yeah,
which. If those hit, especially right now with the prices of cars, again, then you have to be just again as a business owner, you have to be aware of the competition that's coming in.
Of course,
and the price, like, because right now the average price of like a used car is like, I think like the low end is like 25,000 on average. It's crazy.
Yeah, used cars are no longer a bargain. But speaking of tariffs, right? Yeah. The Chinese have a strategy, right? Because they know that they're vulnerable.
Right.
So if you go to Mexico, you're just complicating the scenario because the U.S. has a free trade agreement with Mexico. Okay? We're not supposed to have tariffs with Mexico or Canada, for that matter. All right. So
the power of the American.
If your car is being made in Mexico, the ownership might be Chinese.
Right. But like you said, when we were talking about exporting, you have to set up your business and start a business in that country.
Exactly. So it's Chinese, and Mexico loves that. People get jobs. And they say, okay, so let's ship them to the U.S. So now the U.S. has to go a different layer and say, okay, they're coming from Mexico, but we don't like the owners.
Yeah. There's a lot of wrinkles there.
There's a lot of wrinkles.
Yeah. And so, but then, like, again, to the point of why businesses look to import for their stuff, it goes back again to cost.
It depends on the business. Well, I mean, there are some businesses, right? I guess if you want to import French,
like delicacies, like specialty items that you could only get from particular.
Exactly. Then it's you have quality, you have differences.
So it's almost like a high-low game.
Exactly.
Right? It's either like super high quality that we want to get this specialty item from this area.
Yes.
Or we want this more almost like a more mass-produced kind of side of things that's really cheap. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
That's the import game, basically.
Yeah.
And because you're at the receiving end of it, right? You just order.
Yeah. And so then I guess going into it from what we were kind of talking about in the exporting side, now looking at it from the importing side, here in the United States, if I'm a business, say I want to import, I don't know, maybe like a particular kind of like stone that comes from
Italy.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where my head was at. And so I want to import this specialty stone or this rock. And then it comes, and then they're like, I guess, what kind of protections from the importing side do you need to consider? I know we talked about it with the exporting, and it's probably the same.
Oh, it's.
But like, if like you're supposed to get these tiles or these like clean, like solid long pieces or whatever, and then they come and they're broken or whatever, or it's not the quality that you thought.
If you use a letter of credit, your bank just won't release the money.
Got it. Is there any sort of like insurance play or something like that comes into play as well?
If you're talking about insurance, right? We didn't talk about it. Like the Exim Bank, okay, it's the Export-Import Bank.
Okay,
it's a federal agency.
Interesting. I didn't even know that existed. That's why Pierre's on the show, people.
It's a federal agency, and there is a component of insurance that's involved in what they do.
Got it.
Right there, you buy insurance from them either to sell or to buy, right? Exim Bank also finances.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, they do. In fact,
I guess it's Exim Bank. So
no, in fact, that's what they do most, right?
Yeah, that makes sense because that's how banks make money.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, what they do, for example, let's say a country wants to buy someone somewhere.
Sure.
They're not gonna give you the money, of course. It's too much money for them to go and buy an LC, right? They want you to provide them. They're saying, listen, we're going to buy from you with serious people, right? We want you to make it, even if you want to hold the shipment, but there's expenses involved in making it. Boeing, or an American company making aircraft or boats or whatever, right? These are very expensive purchases. You have to make it first. So there's an investment being made in making it. This is where the Exim Bank comes in. Okay, they'll lend your buyer the money.
Wow.
Okay, of course they'll give it to you, but it's in the name of your buyer. They say, listen,
right,
we're going to make this transaction happen, and we're going to lay out the money.
So then the producer has the finances to be able to make that boat, make that yacht, or whatever.
Do that.
And then it gets delivered, and then that person pays XM.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So they're very, very big on it.
It seems really good. It's almost like an extra level of insurance policy just because it is United States federal like organization like that's doing this. And so it's one thing to like skip out on another country of like if it's like Citibank versus like this is the government.
No, this is the government.
Maybe I don't mess with them as much as I would.
And there's continuity. If you do it, if you do it once, I mean, if you have a good standing with them, you can buy more stuff.
Right.
The advantage it is export promotion because most client would like you to extend credit, but you can't afford it. You don't have that kind of. So somebody steps in in order to make it happen.
Nice. Let's grease the skids. Let's get this ball moving.
Exactly.
Interesting. That's really cool. I had no idea. That's powerful.
No, yeah, they do huge businesses, and it's a government agency that's in furtherance of promoting export.
I love it. I guess to do a little capstone at the end here, what advice would you give to someone that has their small business, and it could just be general for people that are looking to start a small business, like because you are our in-house expert import and export advisor. But you can span outside of that to wherever you want. I was speaking to somebody who maybe wants to start their small business or they're looking for that next step they need to take to grow and boost their business. Do you have any sort of insights you want to just give out generally?
Sure. It's my insight is almost anecdotal. If you want to export there are representatives of that foreign country here, both at an official level and in just people level. We'll keep the example of Colombia. The Colombian embassy, usually a consulate, the embassies are usually in one.
Got it.
The consulate has a a commercial rep, right? Commercial rep that you should talk to. You should talk to people in the consulate about, look, I'm thinking about selling this product in Colombia. What do you think? They know about Colombia. They go there, and if that fails, or if in addition to that, right, you go to communities where they are Colombian.
Talk to the people.
It's a small.
Get a yeah. Go do your surveying.
What do you think? What do you think?
Yep.
Because these people are connected to. They may live here, but they're connected to their country. They have aunts, they have uncles, they have cousins. They send money through which is a big thing, which is money transfers. They are connected. So if you tell them, listen, I think I want to sell this and that. What do you think? This is a small survey to do, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to do it. And so I'm saying it's anecdotal, of course.
No, but I think it's a really good insight, especially because I think the perception of a lot of people of consulates are that's government stuff. That's got nothing to do with me. I'm doing business.
You just want to use it.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's not true. All consulates have commercial attachés.
And so then you would just look up the consulate that you're interested in and learning about.
You want to have a conversation with someone.
Yep. And then on there, I'm sure that they have like the names of the representative of the different attachés.
Of course.
That you could reach out to or reach out to their office.
Absolutely. Yeah. Small conversation with someone. It's just picking their brains, right? And they might tell you, wow, yeah, something that might sell, or no, we don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I went to the Spanish consulate in New York City for citizenship stuff, but I was amazed. You could just go in and just be like, "Hi, I'm here. I would like to talk to somebody."
It's a service.
Yeah,
it's open service, and then you go to people who are just like the ones that will buy your product.
I learned this from you from conversations we had many moons ago, was look at your marketing budget and account for some things in your marketing budget. Maybe if you're doing like this new clothing line and you're interested to see if the Colombian population would be interested in these designs, and you take, part of my marketing actually includes product.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go to known Colombian communities, and I'll just go knock door to door and be like, hey, I am actually kind of giving these away. I'm curious how much you think you might pay. Like, do you even want it if it's free? How much would you be willing to pay?
Surveying is important. And a lot of small business don't do it, right?
Yeah.
But surveying, just asking. You learn a lot by asking people and their reaction and what they might think about what you're going to be selling there. And then, so that's a start. It's cheap. It's not, you don't have to travel. You haven't taken a plane. New York has a diversity of people. You could find just about anybody here.
And then, like you said, getting a hold of the people in the embassy in that country as well, like our attachés over there. And you're getting a feel.
These are so valuable sources of information. I think the U.S. Commerce Department calls their program, it's a passport. The passport program is where you buy into it. $200, tremendous. You have a person. It's not there is someone here. You always talking to that same person. That's your consultant down there. Okay. They might even tell you, I'm in America. Of course, I'm in America, but I live here, and I think this is a good product to have here. I see people buy it all the time, and I know who you might talk to because they have distributors. Yeah, you need a distributor. You can't just drop in and think you're gonna just do this by yourself. But who are these people? You don't know them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Meeting them for the first time.
It's true.
That's
amazing.
That would be.
Pierre, you truly are the expert, and I cannot express my gratitude enough for you coming on and sharing this. And I think it's extremely helpful for people because if nothing else, it gives them a good place to understand that, like, the level of planning and that they need to do. And of course, come into our SBDC here at Farmingdale. If you're local on Long Island, there's also SBDCs all the way across the country, and they should be relatively close to you, kind of regardless of where you live. That's the goal of the SBDC. And so go on to americassbdc.org, right? Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. It'll be in the comments, and click on there and you just put in your zip code and you'll find one that's close to you. And so if you're lucky enough to live in this area, then you'll have Pierre here ready for you. Live as seen on podcast.